So update your phones or you're going to be a racist.
That's really funny.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Irenicast. We are a weekly podcast dedicated to the exploration of faith and culture. We are your hosts. I'm Jeff.
I'm Mona.
And I'm Alan.
Thank you again for joining us this week. So, how's everyone doing this week, this fine day?
I'm so tired. School is crazy. I don't know. I'm ready to be done with this semester. How about you guys?
I finished school a long time ago, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Womp womp.
Yeah. Womp womp. We had a birthday party this weekend for my niece. She turned 6 years old, and my little brother basically fulfilled her birthday wish by dressing up as Elsa from Frozen. It was pretty amazing. My little brother was a football player. He was a lineman, and he's got a shaved head and a huge beard. But seeing him in a dress this past
He
weekend,
looks so good.
he did.
That was pretty amazing.
I teared up a little bit. Like, it was one of the most precious things I've ever seen, to see this giant, burly, bald man. Does he still work in corrections? He used to work in corrections.
Yeah.
In a dress with a cape, like holding a kite. I was just like, this is such a wonderful picture of fatherhood.
You know, he actually, I was telling him that his dress brought out the blue in his eyes, but then he showed me he actually had eyeshadow on. It was pretty amazing.
Oh, wow. He went the distance with that then.
He had red lipstick and everything. So
did his daughter request this? Is that what happened?
Yes, that's what she wanted for her birthday was daddy to dress up like Elsa. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. How did she take it? Was she so excited?
Yeah, she was stoked. He kept having a malfunctioning wardrobe because there's a lot of wind going on and he wasn't used to wearing a wraparound dress, but
funny.
Couple nip slips and
yeah.
Oh, he didn't wear a wig, right? Like he was
bald with a huge beard and makeup on. Mm-hmm. I think he waits for an excuse to engage the world in a very creative way. So that was a good one.
So was there like a big reveal? Like, was there music in his entrance? Like, what was the paint the picture for me? I want to see what happened.
Did he sing Let It Go?
We came to the park and he was already dressed up, but just imagine this tower of a man with the manliest beard of all time and great big bushy beard, bald head, and he was like holding the rope for a piñata. Just majestic in every way that you can imagine. The purple dress, thin purple dress. It was pretty awesome. It was kind of weird watching kids beat up a piñata of a princess. There's something a little bit, something.
Well, that took a turn.
I was like, what are we doing?
Oh dear.
It was pretty funny. But I texted a picture of my little brother to my older brother without context. I didn't say this is the birthday party or anything like that. I just took a picture of him in the park by himself. And my older brother was at least interested. I think he said he was terrified or something like that. Wow. It was fun.
That does sound fun. That's pretty cool.
I think the last time I wore a dress, I was in elementary school for Halloween. I dressed up. I did
not expect that segue. Well, the last time I wore a dress.
I have to correct that. I did wear a dress in high school. There's even a video out there. I think I did a lip sync thing where a bunch of football players and I wore dresses and we sang some song for AP Economics. Wow, that's very random and pretty far back.
Well, you know, I always wondered why dresses are such a female thing, because it seems like women shouldn't be the only ones allowed to be breezy down there.
That's right.
You know?
Did you hear that Will Smith's son is making dresses like the norm now? Have you heard about that?
No way.
It's actually pretty epic. He wears several dresses or something like that. And at first I read the headline. I was like, wow, here we go again. No, I was kidding. And then I looked at it.
His kids are super meta. I want to look up a picture right now.
Yeah, you can. I think his name's Jaden, right?
Yeah, I think
so. Anyway,
he
wears other clothes and then puts like a thrift store dress on top. And why not? I mean, if women can wear pants, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Look at this.
I've never personally worn a dress, but I played Jesus a lot in church when I was younger, and I had to wear a robe, so I don't know if it's like the same thing. And naturally, I should play Jesus because I'm a white male with blue eyes.
I just watched a video of you playing Jesus, and you did look pretty epic.
Yeah, I wasn't bad as Jesus, although I had at the time, it was, forgive me, but it was the late 90s, so my hair was like bleached, and I had which I was a cool Jesus.
With the goatee. Did you have a goatee for a while?
I did. As soon as I was able
feel
to
like that's
grow
a youth
facial
pastor
hair,
thing.
I've always had a goatee. Just the chin part, though, not the rest
Not
of
the
it.
full goat.
No.
That's a rite of passage.
Well, then
Those,
eventually it became a really convenient way to hide my double chin as I gained weight when I got older. So.
That's another youth pastor thing that nobody tells you about.
The double chin?
Tricks of the trade. That's right.
Well, now I have a level. No, I'm not going to talk about that. Anyway.
You're not gonna.
We've already had discussions at length about my age. So, so this week we are going to be talking about the whole Religious Freedom Act in India thing and India,
Not
Indiana.
I'm not too well versed in India's politics, but
True.
there if you want.
True. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that. I know it's a weighted issue, and I know that a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. So we're hoping that this will spark real discussion instead of just polarizing things that just create division and all that kind of stuff. But if we do create polarizing division, then that's not on us. That's on you.
It's on society that raised us.
That's right. All right. So on the other side of the music, join us for a conversation about religious freedom. All right. So I don't know about you two, but my Facebook has been riddled with comments and articles and opinions about this thing in Indiana with the Religious Freedom Act. What about you two?
Oh, absolutely. I've been in some epic Facebook debates with some people from different parts of my life. And also, I met a guy at a conference from Indiana, and the very first thing he said was, I'm from Indianapolis, by the way, and I just want to clarify that the mayor of Indianapolis stood up to the governor, and the front page of the internet, God, I can't talk today, or any day. The Indianapolis Post or whatever, the main newspaper, the very next day after this act came out, they ran a full page front announcement that was just all black with big white letters that said something like "End this now." Like, so it's interesting that he like felt the need to say right off the bat like where he was from and where he was at with all of this. To me, a perfect stranger. So kind of goes to show you how like deeply rifted even those communities are where this is all happening.
I know in our circle, like in California, I've seen people pushing to get state workers disconnected from the states that have put through these religious laws. Like, I think that there are whole states that have said we will cease doing business with Indiana because of the passage of these laws, right?
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that that's happened in several.
It's a little ironic,
cases.
Isn't it?
It's weird. It's putting I'm not sure where everyone falls on this issue, and I'm not even sure where I fall on this issue, but I do see that it's even putting a rift in the Union of the United States, and it's putting rifts in between people that I know. And
Wait, Jeff, why is it ironic? Because it's still refusing service to someone who's refusing service.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just.
We'll show you.
Exactly. I don't know. To me, like, it's all. We can sit down and we could analyze the bill, but I've tried to read bills before, and I don't understand how anyone ever makes heads or tails of any of this stuff. But I think what's more telling is the people's response to their interpretation of the bill and how this is created. Like you said, it's created this horrible divide between people. And to me, the things that pop out the most is I think there's some valid questions. Is that in a society that's based on democracy, when is it appropriate to refuse service? You know, people throw out it's Hitler or KKK always come up and stuff like this. You know, like, well, Hitler, we needed to do that, or the KKK. What if they came in with a cake? So is there or should there be a line when we refuse service, whether we agree or not? And then what is our definition of religious versus moral, which I have a few opinions on that one. And then the idea of like, when within the church, at least, when did this idea of, because to me, it seems so counter to what Jesus was and what he was criticized for. But when do we get to this place where association became equated with approval of someone's behavior or whatever, So these are the things that come out for me.
Before we jump into the conversation about those three things, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this whole issue over the topic of whether a business can refuse service on religious reasons to people of certain genders? As in, can this law is protecting businesses who, for instance, will refuse to bake a cake for a gay wedding? That's what I've heard. Is that what this whole thing is about?
Yeah,
and
it's about
some people
what you
say religious freedom is the right to refuse service to someone you disagree with. And then for other people, freedom is freedom in society from bigotry and those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So
basically.
I
So
was
that's-
arguing with one of my friends on Facebook who identifies as a libertarian, and they posted this article about the act and how it's been really blown out of proportion. And in the article, they were a legal professor was being interviewed and said that the law is really no different from federal religious freedom legislation that's been on the books since 1993. But my question back was, why the hell do you need to pass another law if we already have a federal law? Like, to me, that bespeaks that there is something else, there is a subtext going on underneath all of this. So it is very possible, because the act itself is called, I think, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So there is an idea, I think, that's being propagated that religious freedoms are being taken away and we have to pass state law in addition to federal law, which is super interesting to me. So again, none of us are legal scholars. So how do we talk about this intelligibly, And also think progress in some larger like liberal media syndicates have identified that the people who sponsored the bill and authored the bill are really known homophobes themselves personally. And so I think that brings another level into question, like how much do our personal convictions and beliefs impact our legislation and policies, Yeah. That kind of goes along with what you were saying, Jeff.
Yeah. So then I guess a question for me is, in a society where people have rights, how do you balance individual rights with the whole as a community? So the idea of refusing service, to me, the only line is if you are a public business for profit and not a nonprofit, then you are subjugating yourself to the entirety of whatever people believe in your society, and you should have to serve every single person. If we were going to make a line, and then if you want to be a nonprofit, then I guess, I mean, it feels, I don't know, it feels wrong to me anyway, but I don't know. Is there some kind of line that there should be? Like, are you allowed to refuse service to anyone? When does that line cross?
I think that breakdown generally is how it goes. The nonprofits have a lot more exemptions and ability to refuse. For example, like it would be a really strange day legally if someone could force a religious organization to perform a gay wedding, for example. Mm-hmm. But you're right. In the public sphere, if someone has their doors open to the public, they're benefiting from public infrastructures like roads, and they're benefiting from being able to like blast their marketing messages in the public spaces, and they're contributing to taxes and everything else. It seems like to discriminate against persons for no other reason than personal religious conviction is really, really troubling and sets a really dangerous precedent. And for a lot of my friends, like especially my African American friends who come from the Jim Crow South, where there was like legislated or encouraged separation, like separate but equal. I think what a lot of people don't realize is this is incredibly triggering for people who've been culturally traumatized because they've been discriminated against for a very long time in history. And so just refusing to sell a cake to a gay couple reminds gay people in general that people like them have been hunted and murdered and had horrific things done to them just because of who they are. So it's not just, it's a way bigger story than a cake. It's a trigger point for a lot of other horrible things, Yeah.
Yeah. And like, so where is our sense of community or right or wrong in that stuff? Because then the argument becomes like, because then everyone says one of the common themes in some of the articles that have been posted on my Facebook feed, which by the way is very schizophrenic. I have people on both sides of the fence, but it's always, the justification is always, well, the other side did this. So there's that pizza place that was threatened by people who are more left-leaning because they refused, or I don't even know if they refused service, but the owner...
Oh, they refused service.
Okay, they refused service. So the owner said something about, well, I'm not going to serve homosexuals or whatever, and then he got death threats and all that kind of stuff. But then on the flip side, he had a bunch of people raise, over $800,000 for his business. And then you have people on the other side who are more liberal, who are getting harassed by people who are conservative. So, it seems like the extremes on both ends are guiding the conversation and the rhetoric. And it's heightened by the way our news media works. So it feels like our society is in this like huge divide, but I wonder how many people are just think the whole thing is ridiculous. Like, where's the middle ground in all that?
So I think we can define something and then set it to the side. It's almost impossible to talk about this specific topic without eventually discussing homosexuality in our society and the approaches to it. But on the one hand, it feels like for some people, this is an identity issue. You have businesses in the 50s saying, we're not going to serve black people, or even further back, no Irish allowed, those kinds of things. And our society has looked at the racism.
Or the Jewish Gold Star.
Yeah, or the Jewish Gold Star, absolutely. Or different drinking fountains for black and white people. On one side, there are people who believe these acts that allow businesses to discriminate based on whether you're homosexual or straight or those kinds of things are a lot like those laws. Like those are, that's bigotry that's geared towards someone's identity, and that should not be allowed in our society. Then there are other people who look at homosexuality and don't think of it as an identity, as something that's a part of someone. They look at it more like a choice, as if your homosexuality is refusing to wear shoes. There's businesses that put signs up that say no socks, no shoes, no shirt, no service, right? If you don't wear clothes, if you're not wearing a shirt, you can't come into this restaurant and eat. And so for them, homosexuality is a choice like taking off a shirt, as opposed to a non-choice as if you were a certain race. So like those two
being gay, yeah.
Yeah, so those two different definitions of the problem in the first place are what are leading to this. And we can discuss this topic without necessarily speaking to that issue, but that's what's giving rise to all of this, is that I think all of society agrees we shouldn't allow businesses to be racist. I mean, there are laws in the books that say you can't discriminate in your hiring methods based on race, right? Or religion or sex. You can't hire specifically black people or specifically white people or even just men or just women. Like there are laws that protect people. And so that's shaping a more just society. So some people think that those laws should protect homosexual people as well. But others would say, well, that's just going too far. And that's not what those laws are intended for. So that's where it comes down to, is what exactly is homosexuality. And that's why it's such a huge issue.
Yeah, and it's really hard to talk about this issue without talking about homophobia and gayness, because I think a lot of conservative people now are coming to terms with the fact that being gay is not a choice, but getting gay married is a choice. For sure. Like every marriage is a choice, right?
I know there are a lot of conservatives who do not think being homosexual is a choice. Like there's a lot, yeah. I mean, and science is backing that up, right? Over time, more and more. So, and what I've heard is like, people seem to not want to condone gay marriage because I think to them it threatens marriage as a religious and a Christian institution, even though like marriage was around long before Christianity and Judaism, and it's not necessarily a Christian institution for everyone. So like, what would happen if like a Muslim couple wanted to get married in a mosque and wanted to pray to Allah during I don't know how Muslim weddings work, like ritualistically, but what if they wanted to pray to Allah and then a pizza place could say, hey, we're not going to, or a cake place could say, hey, we're not going to serve cake for your wedding because you're going to pray to a false god. Like what gets me about this is why gay marriage has come to be like a more epic sin than other biblical sins. You know what I mean? Because it's within our realm of experience. So without talking about that topic, maybe we can just say, because we are going to discuss homosexuality in the future on this podcast. What if we talk about the right, like to refuse service, as Jeff was talking about? Is it appropriate to refuse service to someone that you disagree with? Or I know for Christians that I know, they wouldn't bake a cake for a gay wedding because they believe they are somehow contributing to and making possible the sinfulness of that ceremony, and they are contributing to someone else's sin. The funniest thing I saw, I think, in this whole issue, you guys ever heard of the band called Sky Park before? It's a Christian band from way back when.
Long ago, yeah.
Long ago, right? So I actually know the bassist, not really know, but I'm online, I'm friends with the bassist from that band, and he did a lot of like theological deconstruction over the years and is building, back up some really cool things. And he was reflecting on this law. And it was funny that this law and the aftermath came out during Holy Week. And that Holy Week is where Christians celebrate the last week of Jesus's life. And he made the comment, he said, "Today Jesus washed Judas's feet, but you can't bake a cake for a gay wedding." It was his tongue-in-cheek way of saying Jesus washed the feet of the person who was going to condemn God himself or the Son of God to death. So Jesus, in a way, was contributing to making it possible for Judas to sin against him, which is like the ultimate sin, right? Gay marriage doesn't hold a candle, no pun intended, to murdering Jesus or whatever. And so if Jesus himself was going to serve someone, even though they were going to turn around and hand him over to like the Roman authorities, how come Christians can't bake a cake for a gay wedding? It was just funny that all that happened at the same time.
That's a really
I
good
saw
question.
That's a really good question. I saw another kind of rendition of that was a meme of some kind that said if someone forces you to make a cake for a gay wedding, make for them too.
See,
Yes.
there
Well,
you go. Like,
Yes.
so Alan, a question for you. From a biblical standpoint, and from all of us kind of growing up from conservative backgrounds, where did evangelical Christianity specifically, or more conservative Christianity, come up with this notion that if I support someone who's doing something quote unquote sinful, then I am participating in that? Like, where did that association come from when it seems from a biblical standpoint, it's so different than the way Jesus interacted with the world
Yeah.
around him?
So I just want to make one thing clear before I jump into this. I'm speaking to a Christian audience, and that's what I normally do when I write and speak. I'm not sure how I feel about putting these things on people who are not Christians. Like, I think talking about the Religious Freedom Act from the standpoint of just general society and democracy and those things is a very interesting conversation. For me, I approach it as a Christian. I look at other Christians who are the ones, by the way, pushing forth some of these bills. And I think that growing up in the Christian community, we get an overlearned sense of responsibility. We look at other people and we take responsibility for the ways that they act. If I at all support someone in any sense when they do something wrong, somehow that wrongness is attributed to me. So baking a person a cake for a wedding, if they're going to take it to a gay wedding, I am now supporting that gay wedding. And that is a very different perspective to have than opposed to what you were saying, Jeff, in the Bible with Jesus sitting at table with sinners, feeding people who are going to go out and commit sins, and you see them in a sinful lifestyle. That wasn't something that, at least from a biblical perspective, looking at the New Testament, that Jesus sat down and said, oh, you shall not have meals or feed people who are just going to go out and use the energy from that meal to sin. You know what I mean? That wasn't the perspective.
Which is funny because I grew up in a denomination where, which is super ironic considering Jesus' first miracle took place at a wedding with alcohol. But I would work with pastors who would refuse to go to weddings where there'd be dancing or alcohol. That it was because then they'd be supporting that or whatever. And it always seemed so foreign to me.
That's overload responsibility, right?
Why doesn't the same thing apply? But I can understand it if someone was going to be really consistent. But then why do conservatives or some religious people support politicians who do atrocious things and not take responsibility for that when they're voting for them? I don't. There's such a double standard. It makes me so furious. I don't understand.
It's true. That breaks down at some point. To be responsible for everyone around you in your life, at some point you do realize, well, I can't be responsible for everything. So it definitely isn't a consistent thing. But the college I grew up in, you were responsible for absolutely everything. You were the atmosphere that was created was like, you are responsible for the sins of every single person around you. So if you somehow cause them to sin or stumble or whatever, you are directly responsible for that sin. And so it was almost this paranoia. I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast, but I came to a point in the college atmosphere that I went to a very conservative Bible college. I was so worried about offending other people that I wouldn't even put my arm around my fiance because I was afraid of making someone stumble or making someone sin. And I got approached. I actually got approached, and my wife and I are not people who show a lot of PDA, but there was one point where I was reading and she was like, had her head down on the table next to me, and she's probably about a foot away. And I was like rubbing her back lightly. It was nothing, over the top. And I got approached and I was told that I was making other people stumble. And so getting getting all of that information, and it really makes you feel like you are responsible for the decisions that everybody else makes. And so
and that's the accountability thing. Like we have to keep everybody else accountable, and that's our job and our charge as Christians. Like I really don't see, and I'm not the biblical scholar in the group necessarily, but I'm thinking back on all of Paul's writings, like as far as biblical basis, like there are outlined some ways to keep people in check as a community, but not an individual to like a person-to-person interaction in like everyday life. It's for like larger patterns of like malicious or harmful behavior. It's not like, I don't know.
People would point to verses, I think it's in 1 Corinthians, that talk about eating meat sacrificed to idols. So very specific. If you are with another Christian brother or sister who looks at eating meat as a sin, you shouldn't, or eating the meat sacrificed to idols as a sin, you should not eat that meat in front of them because it will unnecessarily make things hard on them. You should withhold your freedom so that those people are not offended. But at the same time, you shouldn't do the opposite and say, like, you are not allowed to do this because, you shouldn't put your restrictions necessarily on other people.
I think that's an
mutual
interesting distinction in the sense that the heart behind that text is this idea that as Christians, we should be willing to lay down our quote unquote rights for the benefit of other people. So there's some irony there as well.
Selling a cake to a gay person, like that doesn't count as making them stumble.
Apparently
if you withhold that.
No, it's the idea is you don't do something that helps someone sin, and so that specific passage is used, I think, in creating a culture where there's overlearned responsibility. But it doesn't necessarily apply to the situation we're talking about. Honestly, like that's something that's very different. That's saying, like, I refuse to exercise my Christian liberty so that someone else might not stumble. That's a different thing than saying I refuse to bake a cake because it's going to help someone sin. Those are different conversations, I think. But
what if you say Christian liberty is like having a position of power and the ability to refuse service to someone?
Yeah, that's what Jeff was saying. Jeff was saying, like, it's ironic because that passage is talking about laying down your freedom so that someone else might not stumble. You could make the argument that people getting married to their same gender is making them stumble. So I think that all of that, what I'm trying to bring up is that creates an atmosphere. Some people have used that to create an atmosphere where you feel responsible for everyone else's choices. And I don't see Jesus doing that. I don't see Jesus telling us to be paranoid when we go to a party with sinners if we're somehow going to support their sinful lifestyle. I see the very opposite happening. And so
Jesus definitely didn't do that. And I think arguably Paul like kind of modified that in what Jesus exemplified for us.
Well,
and I think
go ahead. Well, I was just going to say from Paul's perspective.
So go ahead.
Sorry, just from Paul's perspective, if you, I don't know, taking all of his stuff in context, it seems more like he's talking about these ideas of worrying about stumble and responsibility is we've projected that responsibility onto the world around us, where Paul seems to be more communicating like you are a part of this community, and within the community, you are to be responsible for one another, which is a good thing. And Paul even explicitly says in one part, like, your job isn't to judge the world. Your job isn't to worry about what's going on out there. Your job is to help each other grow within the community, within common belief, within common goal for whatever's in front of us.
Before we even move on, I think that it needs to be said that it is psychologically unhealthy to overlearn responsibility.
Yeah.
And I look at my own life, and I've had to really come to grips with the fact that I'm not responsible for other people's actions. I can't live in a paranoid sort of way where I take on other people's guilt. And that's something I still struggle with. That's something that I learned too much of. I agree we need to have some sort of responsibility for one another. And that's a part of being in community, whether it's the church or society at large. But Christianity, or at least evangelical Christianity, teaches that the individual's decision is the ultimate thing that decides whether you go to heaven or hell, right? Not based on anything else but your decision alone. So it's ironic to say that somehow someone else can be responsible for what happens in someone's life. You know what I mean? So to be consistent, we have to give people space to make decisions and to do things. Obviously, that's the basis of democracy, but the church itself, respecting other people's ability to make decisions and choices. It doesn't mean, we don't go out of our way to help people and protect people and help people be more healthy, but we can't take on a responsibility for what people are going to necessarily even do with our cakes. Like that's in my opinion, overlearned responsibility. We need to be able to step back and say, like, let's let them have their cake. No.
Overlearned responsibility to me is a very nice way of putting what I see as a method of control. It's trying to control the person of someone else when they're not hurting anybody, especially. That to me is so antithetical to a free country.
Mm-hmm. And love. So I think the question needs to be asked, like, is this a theocracy? Is this one nation under God? Or is this a democracy with freedom of religion? And correspondingly, is religion... how is religion supposed to function in the public sphere? Nobody can tell someone else that in their private heart of hearts that there is a certain way to think or do right and wrong. But we can push back when the actions of someone in the public sphere cause harm and hurt to someone else. And I think this is where it gets dicey, because if someone's religious conviction is telling them that homosexuality is causing huge problems
to society that gay marriage is the end of the traditional family unit and is a threat to everything biblical, then it is really difficult, because that is their conviction springing from their religious space, and their religious conviction is requiring them to take a sort of public action. So if that is their religious conviction and we have freedom of religion, like basically it's the old, I think it's Hobbes or Locke, is it, or Paine, one of those guys, the foundational aspect of a free democratic society is you have the freedom to swing your fist all you want in your own space, but as soon as it comes into contact with another person's nose, that's when society's going to push back. So liberties and negative liberties is the conversation I think this comes to, and then the place of that in religious discourse.
So Christians are feeling like society is pushing them into a corner and hitting them in the nose, making them do things that they religiously disagree with. And that's what some of these laws are about.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important to make a line between what is religious and what is moral?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, then how do you do that if you do have
one springs from the other?
Well, if we do religious, like let's just say Christianity in general, they're saying it's my religion that says I can't do this, but there's a large portion of Christianity that doesn't believe that's part of our religion, that doesn't believe that homosexuality is a sin, and that affirms that community, and that I don't know, lifestyle is the right word, but I think it's overused. But so where is that? Is it my interpretive religion, like what I interpret my religion to be? Like there seems to be a fuzzy line where it can be that idea of, well, I can interpret my religion any way I want, and is that the part of it? Or you know what I'm trying to say?
Because there is a reluctance to see. There's not a reluctance. There's a refusal within a lot of these conversations for Christians to see that there is enough diversity within the umbrella of Christianity itself, that gay Christians are wanting to get Christian marriages. You know, like they're not even seeing their own siblings who want to affiliate with them and be in the same umbrella and the same family. They're not recognizing that they're even there. And that's really sad to me, that you're not even allowing for enough space to say, okay, we don't understand everything about the Bible. We don't understand everything about Christianity. We don't have a monopoly on it. There are other people who are different from us, but still in the circle, you know?
I think Jeff is saying, is there a space that is outside of Christianity in our society where morals play a role? Because sometimes Christians will say no morality exists except for the morality that comes from the Bible or that comes directly from God.
Well, that's completely ridiculous and offensive to so many people.
I'm sure it is. But
right.
I've seen people like William Lane Craig and other people who are defenders of Christianity, and they'll say that our morality is divinely given, and if there is no divinity, then there is no morality. And so when those statements are made, is it surprising that Christians will look at a secular sphere of the world, like I don't know, government and our society that is based upon democracy? When they look at that is necessarily a moralless place, and they need to assert their own vision of the world and morality. And I think what Jeff is asking is, can we agree on morals outside of our religious convictions? And I know a lot of philosophers who would say we can have social contract morality. We can have our own religious morality and then have our social contract morality that's outside of that. And should that exist? I don't think I'm democratic at heart. I'm a child of the United States, so I don't think we need to force our religion on other people. I don't know many Christians who would say making atheism illegal or making non-Christianity illegal is a good idea, but that's essentially what we're doing on some level with some of these laws, right? We are basically forcing our religious perspectives on other people. And then at the same time, there are people who are just saying, well, that the opposite is true too. Society itself is a form of religion, and it's forcing me to obey its laws as opposed to my own religious ones. So it is a hard conversation. There's almost an impasse between the two. But so in the midst of all that, I can't really speak to the whole social contract society as a whole. I think democracy is absolutely messy. But to me, Christianity is a little easier to deal with because that's my context. And I can argue that serving people is necessary, whether you agree with them or not.
I think our legal system is social contract. I mean, if we're going to claim to be a country that has freedom of religion, which arguably is the base of a lot of democracy, then the social contract has to transcend individual convictions, right? It has to be something universal that everyone can agree on together.
Yeah.
So what do you guys make of this whole war on Christianity thing that a lot of more conservative news outlets really propagate, that there's a war on Christianity. I think there is a level of paranoia and fearfulness in a lot of the rhetoric that I've been hearing coming from these groups that if we don't stand up for our right to have religious freedoms, then they will be taken away from us, maybe because we're in the last days or we're in a post-religious society, or the atheists are always trying to get our goat, no pun intended. But this idea that Christians are being actively warred against and intolerated, but everything else is tolerated.
So Christianity has been the default of society for quite a long time. And anytime there is a change in society, it can be taken as an attack against Christianity, because Christianity is the way that it's been done. So a lot of times we see like change or developments of society that are apart from Christianity as an attack, because that's how it's always been.
Yeah, and I think that goes to what both of you have already said. And I think that first of all, Alan, just for our listeners, Alan wrote this amazing article kind of having to do with this idea of attacks on Christianity and stuff like that on his blog. And we will definitely put a link to that in the show notes, because it really deals with this whole issue. But I think
is that the one where you were it's called like 2014's attacks on Christianity that are not attacks on Christianity?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. So we'll put that in the show notes, because it was great. It was a great satire, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Anyway, so this idea, I think it goes back to what both of you two have been saying, with this balance of this idea of a responsibility for everyone else's actions, and then that responsibility creates and puts a burden of power on you, essentially, where you feel that if you have the need to take care of people, then you have a sense of power. And then anytime your power is challenged, or you feel that it's challenged, then you're going to react. And I think hence the idea that so many Christians say that there's a war on Christianity, or there's a war on Christmas, or there's a war on anything that someone disagrees with them about.
And
you can see this in like men's rights advocacy, who are mad when feminists like try to challenge patriarchy. You can see this in like reverse racism cries for people who don't want to share space with minorities, on and on and on. Anytime someone who's so used to being in a seat of power is asked to share space and asked to share power, there's that same crazy reaction that is very similar in this way too.
Mona talked about being post-religious, and our society is really moving into a post-Christendom, post-Christianity sort of way, and that's threatening to a lot of people. So thinking we have the responsibility for all of society to keep it Christian, any change in society is going to feel like an attack, even when it's not. People are not thinking I need to make a less Christian world. They're just living according to their religions, and this is the thing. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't have you can't have religious freedom and democracy on the one hand, and then want a Christian society that is thoroughly Christian on the other. Those are two different things that you can't reconcile. Right?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I know what all three of us are saying fundamentally. It's not that we can't have a moral society. Like, our society should ensure safety and freedom for everyone, and we should all try to live in peace, and we should try to get along, you know? We're not saying that you can't strive for a good and fair and just and safe society, but we are saying that when you're trying to make everyone else just like you, that's when the problem happens.
Yeah.
I'm thinking also of all the myths of martyrdom that Christianity still carries with it, that, you know, there's this kind of like, well, the early church was persecuted because of Rome, and if we let Rome come back, like basically if we like let our grip go of society in the public sector and go into a more secular direction, that Christians will be persecuted to that same degree of like being killed and stoned and all these things. I think it's so interesting that that's like 2,000 years old, and that fear is still really with us. And actually, I've been hearing a lot of writings lately that talk about that those early accounts of Christian martyrdom, yes, some of them are real, but a lot of them are not so much that people were killed for being Christians as it was standing up to and bucking the laws in the society of Rome. It was much more political than people are willing to give it credit for. And Christians love to say, oh, they just hate Christians. It's just the enemy trying to obliterate Christianity. He just hates the spirit of Jesus and hates Christians. But that's that's actually not very historically accurate.
Yeah,
It's
and
tough
I think
to tease out religion and politics in the ancient
It
world.
is, yeah.
To
It
make
is.
statements on those things.
And I think it's easy for any side in our society to feel attacked because that's how it's presented. Everything that we get as far as like popular news sites, it is presented as this side says this, what do you think? And it picks a fight. It's antagonizing, it's trying to instigate something. So if the place where we get information from is trying to create a divide,
Ratings.
then of course we're going to react that way and feel attacked because
Consumerism.
yeah, well, there. See, perfect follow up. So it's just so ridiculous the whole thing, and I firmly believe, and maybe I just have to believe this because I want to believe that the world is in a good place, despite what is represented on TV. That when you sit down and you really encounter someone's personal story and personal life and take out the politics and rhetoric and news articles and Fox News or CNBC or whatever else is out there, you take that out and you're talking to a real person face to face, that a lot of those things that we get so worked up at and upset about will melt away and fade away. And I think that's a test of your true character is, can you sit down with someone and not be an ass and really, really talk something out and get to know someone's perspective and really have the perspective of, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, as opposed to I'm trying to convince you that I'm right.
So in the end, I see in this one specific issue, I see both sides so well that like I don't know if I can tell someone that they have to serve wedding cakes to gay marriages, even though I think gay marriages are legit, and I think we should build a society that accepts them and a society that gives people freedom to express themselves that way. Like I don't know if I can tell people that they have to serve cakes to, or I don't know if I could do that, but as a Christian, I feel like I can make the argument to other Christians that we need to be a part of creating a society where we really put in good work, making space for people that disagree with us, because we have not done it in the past. We've done the complete opposite, and it's time for us to be humble and to look at a world outside of our church and relate in a way that's loving and life-giving and not forcing people into things that they disagree with. And so those are two different conversations.
And as a business owner, like I think it's totally fine to base your business practices and your ethics and the way you treat people on Christian principles, but to say that you are a Christian business, but still wanting to do business with, still wanting to reap all the benefits from being in a public marketplace that's not supposed to respect persons or discriminate against someone, I think it's incredibly problematic. Because what's to stop like a whole corporation from saying we are a Christian corporation? We've seen this recently in Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A saying, as a whole company, the few people at the top are going to speak for everyone's religious convictions and be a Christian company. And then not only you have some people having more religious rights within that company than others who might disagree because they're not in power. And so I think it really is a dangerous precedent to say, I, as a Christian business owner, get to make decisions on behalf of everyone else, not just myself, So it's really dicey.
I think in the end, we have to respect people's, and this is funny because this is democracy, right? We have to respect people's right to be a certain way in society. And I think that's what everyone keeps claiming. Nobody's respecting my right. Nobody's respecting my right. I think that's what it comes down to, is not necessarily overlearning responsibility, but allowing people to make their own choices, right?
It was really eye-opening for me. Sounds like a slightly different topic, but I'll circle back around to it in a sec. I visited a mosque recently, a large mosque in New England, and there was a police officer in uniform who was guarding the people who attended the service. And I watched people as they were exiting, especially women wearing hijabs. And this is a relatively progressive mosque compared to some, supposedly. But watching folks leaving the church, or excuse me, the mosque and the service, the Friday prayer, with fear, with like hypervigilance, watching who's around, how are they being perceived? I think it really, for those of us who do have so much privilege, it's really hard to understand that there are so many populations of our country, our neighbors, who don't feel safe and who are the recipients on a daily basis met with fear and what met with antagonism, and they're just trying to live peacefully and be normal people, and so I think as Christians we should err on the side of hospitality and treating people with love, especially if they have been part of a history of marginalization.
Yeah, and if you really want to Christians, if you really want to change gay people, right, if you really want to give them some sort of healthier life by refusing to support their sin, create an environment where they are safe and where you can actually have those conversations instead of a polarizing one where you can't talk to anyone because of the way you relate to the world, right?
I'm uncomfortable with that message.
What do you mean?
I don't think gay people are sinning, and I think
me neither. Well, no, okay, so
okay.
Me neither. But Christians who think that they are, if a Christian thinks gay people are sinning, they should at least be committed to creating a world where there is safety enough to where they can have the conversations about that. If they are a part of creating a society that's so polarized, they will never even be able to share their perspective because it's going to be polarizing. Does that make sense?
This was the essence of the debate I got in with someone on Facebook, because they were like, well, I just don't want to celebrate the wedding because I have personal religious convictions against it. But I'm like, okay, but your actions are saying not only that, but something else. You're saying you kind of secretly hope the wedding's going to get canceled because you don't agree with it. You are trying to impact the actions of another person, not just yourself. There is like an underlying agenda in it. And I think you're absolutely right, Alan. Like, that is totally the wrong way to approach it. If you are trying to influence someone, you should show them radical love, and you should show them neighborliness, and you should get to know them as a human instead of just trying to impact their actions by withholding and punishing them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And on a side note, does anyone else feel like cake? I'm pretty hungry. No, I'm just joking. Anyway, so
I'm not going to feed your sin addiction, Jeff.
Well, gluttony is a sin. I mean, really, like, should you be serving cake at all in the first place? All that.
I do have to say, one of my friends pointed out something so funny about the pizza incident, the pizza place that wouldn't serve gay weddings. They're like, well, according to the same book of the Bible that outlaws, homosexual acts, you're also not supposed to put meat and dairy on the same pizza. So they're already breaking the law.
Oh. And who has a wedding at a pizza place?
I know, it's so weird. I don't want pizza.
A wedding that I want to go to.
I mean, well, yeah, that'd be great for the people that attend. And maybe I wanted pizza at my wedding when I was like 8, but I don't know. Anyway, well, okay. To be fair, I'd probably still want that. Anyway, so obviously this is so many layers to this particular issue, but I really think kind of where we're closing in, it just comes down to recognizing that your experiences and the world that you've lived in is not the only perspective, and don't impose that perspective on the rest of the world around you without at least taking steps towards trying to understand where someone else is coming from. I mean, that's just what decent people do, right?
And your perspective is not necessarily threatened when you make space for other people to differ.
Exactly. That's the point I think we're making. Your perspective is not threatened when you're allowing people to disagree with it.
Exactly.
Sharing space is democratic.
Sharing space. That's
and
what
Christian.
To do.
So on the other side of the music, speaking of perspectives, we are going to play a little game called word association. So we're going to get into our heads a little bit and find out exactly what we're thinking. So join us on the other side. All right, so this week we're going to do word association. I don't think we've come up with a clever name for this segment. Word association is pretty
That's
generic.
Ironic.
Right? So maybe by the time, no. Or what if we call it like say what or something like that?
Oh, that's right. Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
All right, so this is our first ever say what, or however they said
say
it
what?
with their tone.
Is there a question mark? Say what?
Yep.
Yes.
Question mark and an emoticon? A confused emoticon.
Well, now we have ethnically diverse emoticons, right? Did you get the new Apple update?
That's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah, you can pick.
Oh, God.
Although
did you see Clorox Bleach's comment on Twitter.
Well, did you know that if you send it to someone that hasn't updated, like I sent the African American emoticon to Catherine, and it was like a boy, and it shows the boy, and then next to it an alien. Because she doesn't have the update yet. So it's kind of, they intended things well, but the default when you don't have the update, it's kind of offensive if you think about it. Anyway.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
You should look up Clorox's comment. They said something about bleach. It was really not.
No.
It was not good.
That is not good.
It was very bad.
Well, you two both have iPhones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. And you haven't updated recently?
I'm an American,
No.
Jeff.
Okay, so I'm going to send this to you, and you're going to see. We're going to get your live reaction as to
Okay,
what this
get
looks
my
like.
phone.
Are you ready?
Wait, what? Oh, okay, here. Let me
You
get
got
my phone
it?
too.
So we're texting live here on our not live because we're pre-recorded. But, okay, so this is
We
an
should do a
African American
live show.
I
girl
think we
on.
just opened up a time-space continuum.
It's an African American girl on my phone, and tell me
Okay.
what comes up on your phone since you haven't updated.
Oh, a white girl and an alien.
A white girl and an
See,
alien.
a white girl and alien. Isn't that weird?
Whoa.
Oh my God! What?
That's not okay.
So update your phones, or you're going to be a racist.
That's really funny. Oh my goodness.
Oh God, I'm uncomfortable.
Okay.
All right, let's play the game.
Yeah, let's play the
Okay.
game. All right, so word association. I'll go ahead and start, and then so basically the rules of the game is I say a word, and then you two say the very first word that comes to your mind, and then you can qualify if need be, if it's
So
super strange,
there's no thinking involved. We just react immediately.
which I think is difficult for all of us
First
if we
thing
can
that
be.
comes. Yeah, the trick is to not overthink this game. All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And to not have a word ahead of time either. Okay.
Okay, are you ready for the first word? Ready? Hello.
Yes. Mind is empty.
Mind is empty.
It's like, was that the word? Ready?
No. Okay, here we go.
Empty mind.
Suspenders.
I just thought of Larry King.
Nice.
I just thought of an old guy.
I just think of Larry King's glasses. That's it. And I think of him like his like really square.
Interesting. Did you two play this game with yourself when you said the word?
What do you mean?
Like for your words, do you have what you thought
No.
of specifically? Oh, okay. I thought
No,
of
that's-
Urkel when I did
that's
this.
brilliant.
Work that way. Well, see, I thought of an old guy, and then I thought of swing dancing, and then I thought of an old guy swing dancing
Nice.
because I love to swing dance. So there
An
you go.
old guy?
That's awesome. I thought of
All right.
Larry King, suspenders, glasses, and then SpongeBob SquarePants because he's kind of square, kind of like SpongeBob. No joke. That's what I think of.
Nice.
So maybe the humor in this game is not just the very next word, but like
The
the
flow.
string,
Yes.
the string of things that you think of.
Wow.
Okay, where your mind goes.
Hopefully not a bad place.
All right, Mona.
Alan, you got one. Oh,
Oh,
me? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ready? The word is gumbo.
Alton Brown.
I just immediately thought of I can't think of the word what it's called, but Forrest Gump's ship. You know, Forrest Gump and the restaurant that came from that.
Oh, Bubba
Oh,
Gump
bubble
Shrimp.
gum.
Bubba Gump. Thank you. I
Yeah.
think of Bubba Gump.
I just watched an episode of Good Eats on Netflix that was how to make
I
gumbo.
flipping
So that's
love
exactly
that
what I did.
show.
It's my favorite show of all time. If I had
It's really you kind of look like Alton Brown.
Maybe
that-
that's why he likes it.
Thank
There's
you so much.
biological reasons.
It's like looking in the mirror.
like the fact that people get married to people with the first letter of their first name more often than should be statistically possible. Like there's some
Let Kat know. She's
weird
got some
neurological things.
Anyway, I love that show so much. You know that age-old question: if you could have dinner with anyone in the world, who would it be? It would be Alton Brown. So great. Anyway,
Vicky and I talked. Mine
So
was
good.
mine was Speed Levitch. I'd have dinner with him, and then she would have dinner with Gordon Ramsay. Weirdly, another chef. I don't know what it's with you and your sister, but you'd have
listen,
Dinner
we
with-
grew up with food issues, but that's another issue. Okay,
That's
Alan,
funny.
your word.
Okay,
Alan.
here we go. The word is. Have you cleared your minds?
Yes,
Red.
I don't know.
devil.
Paint and devil. Nice.
More specifically, Daredevil,
What's red
because I just
paint?
watched the new.
Daredevil.
all my things is Netflix. I just watched the new Daredevil show on Netflix, so that's what
That's
came to
awesome.
mind.
The website Netflix is red.
That's true.
Oh,
Well, I thought of red paint, and then immediately I was like, paint, no, tape, red tape.
You're correcting yourself. That's awesome.
I don't know.
Correct. No, tape.
My subconscious is incorrect.
okay.
All right, Jeff, got another one.
You ready?
Mhm.
Resolve.
I just think of a Christian conference called Resolve, like conservative Christian conference. So I thought of Masters College, where I come from.
I think of some kind of laundry detergent. I don't know if it is an actual laundry detergent, but I think it would be a good name for one.
I think it is.
You know what? It might be. I don't think, well, just to clarify, I don't think my college put on Resolve. I think that might have been Mark Driscoll or something, but some form of that.
Resolve, like you're going to solve it again.
There's a Resolve conference. I think it's for men.
Probably is.
Actually, initially, Jeff, I had anger. That was the first thing I thought of because it's
Interesting.
so intangible that I
Nice.
couldn't think of a picture.
Hmm.
Not like in a meta sense, but I was mad at you because I was like, that's not a thing that I can picture.
Oh, so that wasn't the word that came. That's the feeling you got was resolve. Was anger.
I felt before I thought of a thing.
Oh, so I made you
Wow.
angry. I'm sorry.
You did. You made me mad. It's not hard to do though. All right. The next word is whip.
Leather. That's all I thought of. I thought leather.
I thought of a lion.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, like the circus, right? The
yeah.
lion tamer with the whip.
Oh wait, I'm supposed to always be surprised that you don't go to a bad place, Jeff. Right?
Yes,
Every time
exactly.
we play family games that are like psychological, we always expect Jeff to go somewhere he doesn't.
Yeah, apparently Alan
we
has
force that
established
on
that I
him.
am a man whore, and if it's not sexual in nature, then I blow his mind.
It's
No offense.
okay.
All right.
Oh,
All right.
dear.
My word is, you ready? Eyelashes.
Butterfly kisses. Oh.
Aww.
I thought of something similar. I thought of my daughter's name.
Really?
Yeah. Because there's a regular conversation between Kat and I how she has a theory that women really want nice eyelashes, and it seems to be always guys that get long, luscious eyelashes, and that one of our daughters has my eyelashes, which are apparently luscious and wonderful, and if I was a lady, I could hypnotize you with them.
Anyway, Jeff.
So anyway, that's what I thought of.
So I subsequently thought of a conversation that my best friend and I had. We talk about weird things all the time. But what if instead of like, you know, it's so strange, like in old fashioned days when you challenge someone to a duel, you slap them with your glove. What if instead you gave someone a butterfly kiss to challenge them to a duel?
Nice.
If it was like, I will flap my eyelashes at you aggressively.
That's a wonderful nonviolent strategy. That would diffuse the situation immediately. Don't
Do
you
you
think?
think it would?
Because
It would.
because if someone went to go do it, it would just take away their resolve to fight.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like anti-aggression protests that have like banners of like eyelashes with like an X over them, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
but
they just
practically,
become a
would you be
symbol.
able to get close enough without getting punched in the
Exactly.
face?
I don't think you can quickly kill someone that you've just butterfly kissed. Those things,
But-
you know what I mean?
In the movies, at least, I haven't seen many real fights in person, but in the movies, at least, when people are mad, they get so close to
That's
each
true.
other's faces.
That's true.
It's like, I will almost touch you with my nose.
Look at any UFC weigh-in, right,
Oh,
Jeff?
that's true. Yeah, they go nose to nose if they did a
They
butterfly
do
kiss.
get butterfly
Although
kisses.
in one UFC weigh-in, someone kissed the other guy
Kissed
and
the
it
other
started
guy.
the fight.
Yep.
So maybe it wouldn't work.
What?
Pretty
Yeah.
epic.
Oh.
At the weigh-in, he kissed him right on the cheek, and they had to break him up.
Well, to be
Judas
fair,
Smith.
about
Or on the lips.
75% of the UFC is like coming just short of that. Like that's there.
Yeah, I mean that's what they do. You can't be
I
surprised
think
when they
that
fight.
sport is so homoerotic. Am I
It
the only
is.
one? I used
No,
to
you're
watch
not
it
the
with
only
my
one.
friends and just laugh. Like, this is so homoerotic. Anyway, all
There's a
right.
fine line between love and hate. That's all. Okay.
That's what I've
Well,
heard. I
that's
don't know
true.
how that works.
So who's up next?
Jeff, you got one more?
Do I?
or-
I have. Wait, who just went?
Did we all do two?
Did we all do two?
I
let's,
did too. Yeah.
Let's go one more. You guys ready?
Okay,
for
I'll go
Let's
one
do one
more.
more. Okay,
I got one. Ready?
go for it.
Octopus.
Sushi.
I just think of bananas.
What?
Where does that come from?
Okay,
Please
I
explain.
have no idea. This is so in youth ministry, we used to have random videos that we'd play before youth group, and kids would vote on what's funnier, and then it'd be shown again the next week. And one of them was I don't know if it's IHOP or some stupid ad campaign with an octopus that's above these pancakes, and it's shaking, and it's called like Nannerpuss. It's like about bananas, and it says Nannerpuss, and I like pancakes. And so I think of bananas when I think of
What?
octopuses now. Yeah.
Is it a funny
So
video?
Weird.
It's supposed to be funny, and it's like slightly disturbing. It's supposed to stay in your mind.
Well, let's
So-
put that. We'll put the link to that in the show notes if you're
There you
curious
go.
about it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm thinking
Yes.
of this really early video of this guy singing about banana hands and doppelgangers. It's like this German guy singing this really nonsense song. It was one of the first YouTube videos I ever saw. So I'll send you a link for that too, Jeff. We can put it in there.
Sounds
In some
good.
comments.
Weird. Just
YouTube.
Weird.
okay.
I know.
All right. I have another word. You ready?
Yep.
And then Alan, you have one more, and we'll close on
Yep.
that. Okay. All right. Gremlin.
Green.
Movie that I never saw.
You never
You've
saw
never seen
Gremlins?
that? You know, I feel like every episode
I
of
wasn't
this,
allowed.
I think every episode of this podcast comes down to someone saying I've never seen that and everyone else saying, "Are you serious?"
I think that's every
You've never
question
seen
in the world, right?
You
Like,
moron.
you got to see that though. I really think you'd
Sheltered.
love it. Watch
Next
it
time we're
during.
together, we'll have a
What's it about? Okay, no, don't tell me. I like to be surprised.
Yeah, be
Do I
surprised.
have to watch it?
Yes,
next
you
time.
have to
Next
watch
time we get together at a family event, all three of us,
Mhm.
we'll spend our time watching Gremlins, and then we'll watch what did Jeff didn't see? The Notebook, right? We'll watch
No, I don't
no,
wanna
that's
watch
not
that
fun.
crap.
That's not fun.
that.
We want to watch fun stuff that we think people will like.
Okay.
All right.
But you got to
Alan,
watch it.
you're next?
Yeah, the last one. You ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Common.
Rapper.
That's what I thought too. Rapper.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the only one we got the same.
Ooh, mind meld. Nice.
It happened.
It did
does.
happen.
Oh,
What a way
I think
to
he's a
end
singer though, but I thought
What an
rapper.
inclusio.
Is that racist?
a bookend.
What if our minds were ever linked? If you melded on that game once, you could like created like atomic nuclear linkage.
Yes,
you know?
like every movie in the 80s where the dad and the son or the mom and the daughter switched places.
Body switching. Yeah,
Yes.
Freaky Friday style.
Maybe
Although,
maybe
there's,
we'll
like,
wake
so
up
much they
Mona
left
and
out.
You've thought a lot about this, haven't you?
I have thought a lot about this.
well, I'm sure. Anyway, I was going to say there's probably a
Oh dear.
Oh my God.
I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
perpetuating Ellen's stereotype of me. That's all I'm
we have
doing.
to, we have to end on that note.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll just edit that out. All right, Jeff.
I don't know. I think it
And then
should
we'll
stay.
have us saying we'll just edit that out so everyone has to wonder what you said. That's what we're gonna do.
That's super
So,
meta, right?
wait, so they have to do the word association.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
There
That could
we
be a
go.
Facebook question. What is the word that
What
was
did Jeff
edited out?
say? They got edited out.
Insert caption.
But that
here.
actually. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us this week and supporting the show. That'll do it for us. Thank you again for thank you again for all of you that have rated and reviewed and subscribed to us on iTunes. If you haven't yet, please do that. It really helps the visibility of our show to get our show out there to more people. So check us out on iTunes and Stitcher. Email the podcast for any questions at podcast@irenicast.com. Follow us on Twitter @irenicast. Or on Facebook at facebook.com/irenicast. And tomorrow we will have a question that you can interact with. And thank you for those that interacted last week to our question. We had some good responses there. And then check out our blog at irenicast.com. I think that's all the social media stuff. So for this week, I'm Jeff.
I'm Mona.
And I'm Alan.
Thanks for joining the conversation.